What the f is all of this?
You're right guys, Skull Merchant Main here. The new design preview for the Skull Merchant changes are here, and your boy is going to go through them a bit, primarily because Behaviour are looking for feedback, and quite frankly, the comments on the post are a goddamn train wreck of DBD brain rot crap.
You need to stop everything. What are you doing with your life?
Just so we're all on the same page, I hate the current Skull Merchant, I hate laser attacking and everything to do with it. I loved Skull Merchant for her add-on variety, her claw traps and her stealth, only one of which actually stayed to any meaningful degree with the last rework. I think 1.0 Skull Merchant was the most fun when you weren't 3-genning, and I couldn't give a skadoodle whether they fundamentally change up her gameplay because nobody cared when they did that to the Skull Merchant that I loved. So, now that I've successfully pissed off every other Skull Merchant main, let's get into it. This video is going to assume that you've seen the initial design preview changes. If not, don't worry, I will do a super fast rundown when we get to specific changes in the video. So let's get into it gamers, and we're starting off with a banger immediately. They've removed the Kill Aurora reveal when hacking a drone. This was a change they added in the design preview before, and it's something I specifically requested that they should remove, and they've done it. Now, this change should have never gotten to the design preview, but it is gone now, so that's a big win. Giving survivors wall hack on a killer for deleting their power is something only DBD Twitter would think is a good idea. Next change. The global detection power detects survivors who are running or walking, keeping this consistent with how drones detect players. So, this ability is still dog. For those who don't know, this is the red light green light mechanic that they are adding to her. Basically, imagine the doctor shock that gives you information where survivors are. Now imagine that but completely useless. That's the new Skull Merchant mechanic. Before these recent changes, it would only scan you if you were running. It now scans you if you're running or walking. So basically, it's still going to be asked for actually finding people because anyone with a brain cell is going to do the very difficult task of crouch walking or standing still to completely counter the entire ability, especially considering the survivors get a map-wide audio notification that Skull Merchant is trying to scan them in the first place. So, that mechanic still sucks. The next change is the stealth drone lines are now visible, but will not extend entirely down to the ground. Anyone who saw my previous video on the initial changes knows, but the change they proposed was actually one of the main things I praised in the entire rework. For those who do not know, they were going to look something like this. So the green bit is what you would see as the survivor for the scan lines, whereas the orange bit is where you would still be scanned. Now I was excited for this change because I liked the stealth drones and they were deleted in one of her 9 rework. The drones are supposed to catch survivors off guard. That's their entire purpose, and having a bright orange beam coming out of them isn't exactly the definition of stealth. Now some people are going to say, but JC, the changes they proposed would make it very difficult to see and you would end up getting scanned quite a lot. You're correct. Now normally awkward or weird counterplay I'm kind of against, but here's the thing. Scanning survivors in these changes will only give away your position temporarily. That's all it does. It's not like now where you can be injured if you scan too many times, it's just information for the Skull Merchant. So it's okay that the counterplay is harder and that they're harder to see, because the punishment is not huge and that's the entire point of them. But JC, they don't entirely extend to the floor. Okay, whoop-de-fucking-do. The scan lines are orange. Behaviour. Orange. You can see them from Narnia. They don't exactly blend into your 50 Shades of Grey colour palettes that you call maps. It doesn't matter that they don't extend onto the floor when they're literally the colour that blends into nothing. That's why orange is used on roadworks, because it stands out that much so you don't crash into the back of cars while you're driving. So now she has 2 different parts of her kit that are designed to spot people when out of chase that will never do it. And look, Behaviour themselves say they're for spotting people out of chase. That's their intended design and they just won't do it because you're given too much info as the survivor.
I think we did a pretty good job so far.
The next change we have is the drone buddy. So you get 5 deployable drones just like before, and you get an extra drone that flies beside you like a little friend. It even has a little bow in the picture they drew of it. Side note, it better have the bow when you implement it into the game.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half. But if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
We'll get onto this one later because we're going to need the context of the power to understand what this one does. Now here's the meat and potatoes of the whole changes. Now the drones work how they did before in terms of raw mechanics, but they no longer down survivors. For those who are not caught up, Skull Merchant will remotely control her drones and then fly them into survivors to injure them in a charge up power. Now this mechanic initially was going to let you down survivors, and now it no longer does. Now here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. When you injure a survivor with the drone, they now get a claw trap, which means that they brought back the claw traps, which is very exciting for me, but we'll get into that later. Now, when a survivor has a claw trap on them, they become broken, and this is where your drone buddy comes into the equation, because you can now fire a small explosive ranged attack from the drone buddy. If a survivor doesn't have a claw trap, then you won't down them with the ranged attack. Removing the claw trap on the survivor involves you just holding down the interact button and then it will come off. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, so we'll start with the overall power. She is now objectively weaker. The reason is that you must inflict a survivor with your power before you can use your power to down them, since they need a claw trap on them before you can down with your drone, compared to before where you would just fly your drone into them twice to down them. This is objectively weaker, so it brings us on to the next issue, the removal of the claw trap. Now, from what I'm reading, it seems like you can just instantly start to remove the claw trap the second you get it on you, which is going to be an issue. One of the big benefits of remotely controlling a drone was being able to pressure survivors at a distance, similar to Victor on the twins, and then down them at a distance purely with the drones. You can no longer down the survivors at a distance since you need to use your drone body to down them. It also means if you want anti-loop for the down, they'll need a claw trap on them, and the only way to put a claw trap on them is by flying your drone at them. So if you fly your drone at them at a distance to put a claw trap on them and then they get it off, by the time you're at them, you're then going to need to have to fly another drone at them before you can begin to use your anti-loop. This means that if you want to chase somebody with your anti-loop, you will need to lock down an area so that you can pressure the person you've hit with your drone before they can get their claw trap off, so that you actually have anti-loop when you go to chase them. Might I remind you, the last time the school merchant was unable to pressure a survivor with a claw trap effectively, we got the 3-gen merchant. With the current claw trap mechanics, it will re-encourage this. This is a huge oversight from behaviour. It would be like giving the survivor's wall hack for deleting your killer power. Oh god, how many of these videos am I going to need to do with oversights like these? For the love of God, let it end, please. But fortunately, the fix is really simple. Just make it so you need to wait like 20 seconds before you can begin to remove the claw trap. That gives you plenty of time to walk across the map as Skull Merchant to pressure the claw trap survivor before they remove it, which will now be encouraged because you have anti-loop to actually down them. This will fix the big issue 1.0 Skull Merchant had, where you would get a survivor with a claw trap on them so you knew exactly where they were by tracking them, but you had no real power to down them, so no one committed to the chase even though they could see where they were 24/7. Whereas with this change, you'll be able to see them on your radar because of the claw trap, and then you'll be able to use your drone buddy's anti-loop to actually down them in a meaningful amount of time. Another fix could be that if a survivor is scanned by a drone while injured, then they get a claw trap on them. This would make being able to see the scan lines easier actually make sense now, because there's a bit more threat to being scanned. It doesn't directly down you, it just gives the Skull Merchant the ability to use her anti-loop. Now, the one thing I am super happy about is the return of the claw traps, and more importantly, they're easier to put on the survivors again, just like with 1.0 Skull Merchant.
Yes!
Claw traps are a big part of her identity, which means that she'll actually feel like the Skull Merchant just by them existing, unlike before, where they claimed that her entire identity was using technology, which is just bollocks. The main reason I'm actually really excited about the claw traps though is her add-ons will have variety again, which is a big selling point to me. With her last rework, all add-ons to do with claw traps became useless because it took too long to claw trap the survivors. With these proposed changes, because you injure and put the claw trap on the survivor by doing a single action rather than 3, it will make inflicting survivors with the claw trap much more consistent and easy. It results in more consistent add-on value. The next thing that we need to worry about is there are now 2 different skill shots that you need to hit with Skull Merchant. You need to hit the initial skill shot of the dash-based drone crashing into the survivor, then you will need to hit another skill shot with your drone body, which seems like it's going to be more along the lines of the unknown, both of which have charge up time. This seems like it's going to need a fair amount of mechanical skill from the killer's perspective, since no other killer has 2 different types of skill shots that they need to do to down the survivor with their power. This means that the power is going to need to be really strong in order to make up for the fact that you need 2 completely different skill sets in order to use your power effectively. And judging by the changes that we've seen so far, they're trying to be really reserved on how strong she's going to be against survivors, while not really caring about how much effort it's going to take as the killer to get the down in the first place. So, in conclusion, we have 2 abilities designed for spotting that will never spot since the counterplay is way too easy. We have a more complicated power that requires you to infect the survivor with 1 power before you can use your other power that requires 2 completely different skill sets, but we do have some of her identity back, and her add-on variety theoretically should be back, unless behaviour pulled a classic dumpster all the add-ons for a rework trick, which they've done many times before. Bruh. Now, it may seem like I hate the changes, and I did meme on them quite a lot, but I actually don't hate the changes, and I think there is something solid here. The question is whether behavior are going to make the counterplay too easy, which given the past, I'm not holding out much hope that they won't. However, for once will actually be helpful to behavior, and I'll have a written up version of this on the forums. Whether you agree or disagree, let's try and keep it civil so behavior actually have somewhere they can go for proper feedback, rather than scrolling through the dumpster fire that is DBD Twitter replies and Steam forum users. Anyway, that's all from me, gamers. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.